Hey everybody, welcome to the third episode of the New to You show in our topic installment of
travel.
Yeah, we're going places with this topic.
Heck yeah. We'll take you there.
Yeah. So the week prior, the episode prior, we heard from Jules, and the prior before that, we heard from Mary. This week, we're gonna hear from Keith.
From me.
From his pick.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, welcome to the New to You show. I'm one of your hosts, John Holt. With me this week is
Jules.
Keith.
And I'm Mary.
All right, no last names.
Nope. We just dropped them all
right.
like Cher.
AA.
I'm the Jules.
The beautiful Jules.
But not to be confused with Jewel.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not.
So Keith, you were pretty sure that you had what was new to you this week.
I do. The animated show Rick and Morty that's on Adult Swim now, created by one of the creators, Dan Harmon, from that you might know from Community, and you might also know from Channel 101. But it's a hilarious show, and I really like it. And honestly, I hope it does gangbusters, because then maybe they'll say, "Let's make 50 shows like this." So it's a really there's some offensive parts in it, but I think it works because the character of Rick is offensive, and he's a scientist who's mastered science. But it's a cute show. I could tell you a little bit about it, but I think you should just watch it. You can see some stuff on YouTube.
Is it the one that's in the style of Adventure Time?
It seems a little like that, yeah.
It's cool. I like
in
that.
fact,
I saw
some
an
of the-
episode of it. It's weird.
Some of the design is weird, in that the hair. I couldn't even show you without showing you, but where the hair meets the head drives me a little nuts on that show. But they're ambitious. They keep the characters so streamlined that they can do a lot with animation. So, and they do. They really, the two episodes that have come out that I've seen, they actually push the animation quite a bit, and so that's good to see. That's fun to see in an Adult Swim show, and it's funny, really funny, very funny. So, there you go.
Cool.
That's my pick. What's new to you, Jules?
New to me is I got a GoPro action camera as a gift. Unfortunately, I haven't really had any time to play with it yet. So I'll have to report back later on how awesome or not awesome it is. But my number one goal is to strap it to one of my cats somehow.
All right.
And get a cat's eye view of the world. So I'll see if I can pull that off or not. But also on my walk over here, I saw a very heartwarming winter Christmas theme. There was like a whole family, like it was like parents and like 3 kids, all like walking down the street, all bundled up, hauling their Christmas tree home, and it was swell.
Right.
But that's got nothing to do with the GoPro.
That was another thing that was new to
If you had
you.
your GoPro, you would have been capturing that. moment.
Yeah.
Happy
I would've been like,
family.
can I strap this to your Christmas tree?
Seeing a happy family haul a Christmas tree
Yeah,
was new.
It was new to me for this season, and it was great.
Yeah, and it was snowing out. It was
Yeah,
beautiful,
yeah, it was
I'm
just-
sure.
Yeah, it was like a scene from Home Alone. Dad left Kevin behind.
Except not the part where they left their kid. Okay, good.
All right, that's it.
All right. You did share some great GoPro cat videos with everybody as soon
So
as you
I
got
did-
your cat pro
did
to
my
show what was
research.
going to happen. And I was telling the guy who's working on the squirrel short that he should look at that stuff too, because there's some cool like subjective, objective.
What's a squirrel short? What?
He's
got
working-
One of our coworkers is working during his downtime on an animated short about a squirrel, and it's kind of like a squirrel in the city, like a day in the life of a squirrel in the city kind of thing.
Okay.
But I was just kind of telling him there's these
Well,
moments.
we know
in those
another
videos,
friend.
yeah.
Another friend of ours just finished a cartoon about about 2 squirrels. Andrew Keiko.
Oh yeah, I saw
Right.
that.
Just finished his, and these are some characters he's been kicking around for a long time.
Squirrels
so.
are in the zeitgeist.
He had a
Shoot.
comic with them, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Mary, what about you? What was new to you?
I watched the first episode of a show on Hulu. It's exclusive to Hulu Plus. Called The Wrong Mans today.
I've been seeing
it's
posters for that. all over.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like a BBC show. I don't know if Hulu Plus kicked in money originally too, but it's exclusive to Hulu, and that they're the only ones who are showing it in America right now. It's not like it was, or it's original. It's in their original section, but it's not like
It wasn't made
They-
for Hulu. They didn't produce
Right.
it.
It was made. It sounds like it was made
For BBC.
It's a BBC television comedy drama series co-produced with Hulu, and it
Oh, so-
premiered on BBC Two in September, and then here in November on Hulu.
So they did throw some money at it.
That's what it sounds like.
In the production stage.
Because
Yeah.
the way they were advertising, it really felt like it was their baby. Like they weren't just appropriating it or whatever.
Yeah,
So
but
that's
yeah, I
interesting.
saw the first episode, and I'm definitely interested. I mean, it's kind of one of these like this ordinary guy stumble on a crazy criminal situation seems to be the premise. So that's, I guess, where it's going
Did
to
you
go.
like the episode though?
Yeah, and I'm definitely
Was
interested.
it straight or wacky? Like what? How would you frame the?
It's this is called Wikipedia calls it a comedy drama series, and I think that's appropriate. I mean, maybe a similar feel to like what's that show with Elijah Wood, Wilfred?
Okay.
Although there's not a surreal element of a talking dog, and it's I think it's actually created and written by the two guys who are in it, James Corden and Matthew Baton. Cool. John, I think Matthew Baton is that guy who was in a Doctor Who episode. He's like a British. You were telling me.
Hasn't every
Yeah.
British actor been in a Doctor
It's like
Who
every
episode?
It seems like it's
The Doctor.
like the Law and Order of
Right. Yeah.
the UK acting scene.
Yeah.
It also makes me wonder: is Hulu available in Europe
Oh, wait,
or
I'm
in
s-
England at least?
It's Ulu over there.
Yeah.
It's different.
Hulu Plus.
Plus. Ulu
Oh,
plus.
wait,
So did you
I might
guys-
have gotten the names wrong.
I don't know if it's on Hulu or if it's on Netflix, but I think it's another original show called Misfits. I think it's British as well. Has anyone seen that?
I haven't seen
No,
that.
I've
yet.
been,
British show.
I've,
I
I've been
watched it a
told
bunch.
to watch it.
Is it good?
The first, I really enjoyed the first season. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like a little bit Monster of the Week initially, but it's also like, people like discovering powers. So it's kind of origins-y and. I
So
don't
did
know.
you ever see in the 80s a show called Misfits of Science?
Yes, and
Is this based on that? Because it seems like they have
Very-
similar powers to the guys from Misfits.
I think very loosely, but the premise and the way it's handled is very different.
Oh man, I gotta watch it then because I loved Misfits of Science. I loved
too.
that show.
I watched it in France. I love the theme song.
Me too.
Look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
And sorry, I had the name wrong of the guy who's in the Doctor Who episode. It's James Corden, and he's some guy that's in a lot of stuff, I guess.
But he's
I didn't
not
know
in
about.
that show that you're
He
talking
is in the
about.
show,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, good.
No, he's in the show.
But yeah, I would recommend the first season of the Misfits. After the first season, I don't know, not as good to me, but it's still decent.
But that's on Netflix, not Hulu.
No,
I
the
think it's
Misfits
on
is on
Hulu.
Hulu.
It's on Hulu.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's exclusive to Hulu, but I know it is on Hulu.
But Mary, what's the name of the one you're talking about again?
The Wrong Man's.
The Wrong Man's.
All right. So my new thing this week, it's not the first time it snowed this season, but I think this is the first accumulated snow that we're
Yeah.
getting. And snow in New York is like that sort of, you very quickly, as a New Yorker, you capture the moment. Everything moves quickly here. So you capture the moment of when it's beautiful and like,
Oh, look, it's snowing.
and then it's gray, and every street corner is a slush
yeah.
hole to be navigated, and so there's right now it's in that moment.
Yeah, and you have like half a day maybe where it's like, where there
Pretty
aren't like
and
a million.
picturesque.
Yeah, and there aren't a million footsteps in it. Same with the park. Like the park will be.
Well, the thing that gets
pristine
me
for-
is all the like when you just see dog pee everywhere.
Yes.
You're just like, oh, I hate
Or
snow
just
now.
like the poop. Just
Yeah,
like,
yeah. People just, it's a weird thing in New York because when it snows, people just decide they don't need to pick up their dog poop. It's weird.
And also, it when you see like how quickly it gets tread and where people are walking and stuff, you just realize. Because in winter, you can kind of forget how many freaking people live
Oh,
here.
yeah, yeah.
And you very quickly are like, oh man, this. Like in the last 10 minutes, a
In
lot
my-
of people
yeah.
have come through here.
In
yeah.
just my, like, out of the way neighborhood, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there must be gallons of salt within like.
Oh, yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
like just so much salt gets poured on a single block. over the course of a snowy day.
People, it's liability.
When I used to have walk a dog in the city, that was you became very aware of that because it messes with their paws or whatever, and not just salt, but also all these like the blue chemical antifreeze stuff. That's stuff you really have to look out.
So there were two. I remember you had a couple products that were like booties you could wear, but also like almost like a surf wax that you would put on the surface.
It was more kind of like a thick Vaseline that you would just put on their paws, and it would protect them. Because I tried the booties, and like the second they go running, and they just fly off their feet. So I would put this like weird Vaseline stuff on the paws, and
it did the trick.
Yeah, I mean it protected the paws, but then you had to like wash it off when you.
So they didn't lick it off.
Right. Yeah, and actually, one time I had forgotten to like close the lid, and the dog ate the whole thing, and she pooped like greasy poops for days, and like all of her fur around her butthole was like all greasy.
So that's why snow's beautiful, people.
Yeah, that's right. Beautiful memories.
So her intestines were very protected from salt and antifreeze.
That's right.
But I think this is the first accumulation that we've really had.
Yeah.
And this is going to stick a little bit.
Of this season.
Yeah. So
I think it's finished snowing now, so I think what we have out there is what we got.
So
of course, this is at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
Not at the time of the playing of it.
Exactly. So that's what's new to me. So let's talk travel.
Oh,
so
yes.
we're gonna roll right into
Come
this
with
week's
us.
pick.
Down Yucatan way, it was the beautiful sort of day you'd dream about. In fact, so beautiful, Apollonio had decided to take a stroll in the market. Ah, yes, first, a little snack of watermelon. Ah, but it's too warm in the marketplace. Fishing's better.
Welcome back. My name's Keith, and I'm going to tell you about my recent traveling. I was lucky enough recently to get married to a wonderful lady who's now my wife, and we chose to do it in one of our favorite places, which is an area south of Cancun, Mexico, called the region is called the Riviera Maya, which is basically a stretch of land and towns that border the ocean,
and they're on the Yucatan Peninsula.
Yes, well, it's on the other side of the Yucatan Peninsula. Yeah, and it's just a really beautiful place that we were lucky enough to visit the year before, maybe 2 years before, and we were and when it came time for us to get married, the reasoning was, hey, everyone who all of our family is going to have to fly in a plane either to here or to anywhere else we would get married. Why not just fly in a plane to Mexico, and once we get there, it's going to be way cheaper. So that's kind of how we did it. So south of Cancun, and a lot of people are like, Cancun, party town. I don't know. I honestly can't speak to Cancun because I haven't really visited there. That's where the airplane is, that where we land. And then it's just like a 20-minute drive to, well, probably closer to 30-minute drive to the towns that we've visited there. But a lot of people seem to think that there's a lot of negative connotation to Cancun. Again, I can't speak to that, but I will say that every place I had visited south of Cancun has just been wonderful. It's just filled with amazing natural wonders. The most amazingly nice people that one can encounter while traveling, and just really interesting, cool towns and clashes of culture, and that's pretty much the gist of why we like it. We fly, and it's a direct flight from JetBlue, which makes it nice. It's a 4-hour flight, about the same amount of time it would take to go to Florida, about the same amount of time it takes for me usually to get home to Tennessee, because it's kind of harder to find a direct flight to Tennessee. But it's interesting to know you can wake up in New York, go get in this plane, and 4 hours later you're in this completely different paradise. So everyone knows about the Caribbean. It's like the turquoise oceans, the white beaches, the amazing wildlife in the water to see, shallow water, really warm water. So these are all the things you get in this area, except it's in Mexico instead of on an island. And I don't have an awful lot of experience of visiting islands in the Caribbean, other than I've visited one on 2 occasions, and it's been amazing. But there's something about it being in Mexico that I really love. And growing up, my father had an affinity. I was born in L.A. My father was coming to his own adulthood growing up in L.A. He was born in Iowa, but pretty much during a formidable part of his life was in LA, and a lot of his friends were Mexican. And so my father kind of deemed himself an honorary Mexican, since I was a little kid. So growing up, we ate amazing Mexican food. My father spoke a lot of Spanish. And for like if we ever went to a fun outing, a very special night, we would always go to like one awesome Mexican restaurant or another, like the few in Tennessee, near Tennessee where I grew. The few in the area around where I grew up in Tennessee, and there weren't many, but still, I mean, there are some, and they're good. So going to visit Mexico was really nice in that for that reason. In that I was finally getting to know some of the folks around there, and I'm a person who never really was a beach person. I was always kind of freshwater kind of guy, but just these beaches there completely changed my mind, because the sand isn't this like really invasive sticky stuff. It's this just amazing kind of I describe it as being sand, like it's from coral reefs, so it's a totally different texture. But I describe it as being like cornmeal, like a cornmeal sand, or some people describe it as polenta, like. But it's just an amazing sand with just enough action in the water. Though when we visited recently, the waves were actually quite strong. But most of the time I'm there, the water's quite calm and just enough to get wet and enjoy it. And that's pretty much well. Let me talk about some of the highlights. So you get there, you get to this region, and the town that we kind of use as a home base is called Playa del Carmen, which is a pretty mid-level city. If it was America, it's kind of like Knoxville. That's what I would describe it as. Do you guys have any ideas of some towns about that size?
We didn't go to Playa del Carmen.
Maybe like a Williamsburg or Virginia kind of thing, where it's like a destination, but it's a trek. It's not DC. It's not like it's not Cancun kind of thing. It's like if you're
it's a very touristy area, but it's a touristy area actually for a lot of Europeans. So the Americans go to Cancun. A lot of Europeans, if they're visiting the area, they go to Playa del Carmen, and it's and it's actually when it was first being built up, some of the first settlers, if you call them settlers, there, the first people to
pause for food.
Pause.
And you're back.
And so to basically to put it all into perspective, when you get there, you've got the second largest barrier reef in the world. So scuba diving or snorkeling is amazing. You've got probably the largest population of turtles that you can go swim up to in the world. Sea turtles, which are just really majestic to see. You've got an amazing town full of a really interesting nightlife, lots of stuff to just walk around and see. You've got the most interesting naturally occurring cave structure that I've ever seen, in that this whole area of Mexico is dotted, literally dotted, with these basically what look like sinkholes, but once you get down and see it, they're actually a cave structure that connect from one cave to the next, all the way across the isthmus there, all the way across Mexico. They're called cenotes. And they're so common that they just show up on people's private land. Well, they don't show up. People have private land that just happen to have cenotes on them, and they'll charge money to park there, and you can just go explore these caves. They're just amazingly beautiful. And while I was there, I was lucky enough to take my second day of diving instruction in a cenote, which was really beautiful. And it's just amazing. The water, most of the fresh water in Mexico comes from the rain, but a lot of the fresh water historically in Mexico comes from cenotes, from underground, from these connections. And just to see something really amazing, check out on Planet Earth, the documentary Planet Earth by BBC. They do they have a section on fresh water, and they show these guys diving in these very cenotes I'm discussing, and it's just breathtaking, amazingly breathtaking, very dangerous, but amazingly breathtaking. So you've got the beaches that are amazing. You've got amazing food, amazing music everywhere. So much live music everywhere, just people playing on the streets. It's wonderful. And while I was there, and I don't know if this is a common thing, but there a lot of Mayan people in the area, and they perform on the streets too. So there was a lot of neat traditional Mayan dancing happening, and obviously the Mayan ruins. Some of the most we're lucky to live in an area where we can just go see these things. They're just beautiful. The last remnants of some amazing culture. I don't know if they were particularly nice guys, the Mayans, but they sure left some really interesting ruins and a lot of great, interesting architecture, etc. That's still, a lot of it is still there. The things to see in that area along those lines is Chichen Itza, obviously very famous Mayan pyramid. South of there is a place called Tulum, which I have visited and I love. Which is these Mayan ruins that they don't have the big pyramid, but it's an old Mayan city that must have been really well developed, but it's on this amazing cliff overseeing this amazing beach and water. It's for a visit, it's just amazing because you're seeing the most amazing beach you can imagine, and right up above it, wild iguanas running all over these.
Yeah, it's littered with iguanas.
Yeah, just running over these amazing structures that some of them you can walk up to and touch. I mean, it's that open, and it's just beautiful. But that's what I could go into some personal stories about some of the things we did there, but I don't know. I think I've spent a lot of time. Check out Tulum on YouTube or on a Google search to see what I'm talking about there. It's just amazing. I didn't get into Cozumel, the island that we visited to go snorkeling, to go diving off. We visited Cozumel to dive. They have these just amazing underwater drop-offs that are all coral and just humongous, beautiful sponges. Just so much wildlife you couldn't believe under there. But after our dive trip, we rented a scooter and was able to drive around the whole island. I wasn't actually sure what I was expecting, but I really enjoyed it a lot more than I expected. And to rent a scooter all day was $20.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so we rented a scooter for by the time we got there, half the day was already gone. But still, if we had gotten there at 7 a.m, we could have gotten a scooter for $20. But since we showed up at 3, we had, I think it was maybe like around 2, but we had the scooter for about 3 hours for $20. And that was enough time to actually drive all the way around the island.
Cool.
And like I said, I didn't know what to expect about Cozumel. I just know I had known it was a place for cruise ships to park and people to, check out right where the cruise ship is. But I was surprised that as we were driving on our little scooter, just how undeveloped most of the island is. It's a tropical, like, untouched area. I would say probably 80% of the island it's just untouched. So when you drive to the other side of the island, which is getting bashed by the ocean, it's just cliffs and beautiful, very few dwellings of any sort, and just amazing. There are even a few beaches there you could stop out and swim.
Cool.
But we were kind of sweating it because we had to get the scooter back by 5:30, and we were like, oh gosh, we got to get around. And, we had never done it before, so we weren't quite sure how long it would take, but we got in plenty time to spare, got around. And when we went, they were when we were doing this scooter ride, there was actually a running, like, event of some sort of running race or something, and that was really nice to come back into town and just see all the people running and finishing their run. It was really cool. I think that's it that I have to say. It's obviously amazing food, obviously great people, really affordable. That's another take home I would say to people who might be interested in this. Your plane ticket obviously depends on when you go and how far ahead of time you would buy your plane ticket. But after your plane ticket, everything is very affordable there. If you want to rent a car, we got a car for $14 a day. Wow. What else? Food is obviously really cheap there.
Yeah, I think another thing is if you live on the East Coast of the United States, it's a quick trip. You can leave early in the morning and you can be hitting the beach in the afternoon.
Absolutely.
Right, because like from New York, it's about a 4-hour flight.
Yeah, it's a stone's throw from Cuba. Like it's just
so it's very you could do a long weekend pretty easily without feeling drained by the experience.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too is just like you hit the beach and I don't know. They're the kind of beaches that just take all your worries away. It's cliche, but it's true. Like the second we arrived and just, sat in a hammock, it was just like,
yeah.
Like the whole experience of traveling in the airport and all that was very quickly erased. So
yeah. So I don't know if we said, but we all, John and Jules and myself all came to Keith's wedding, and what you guys had done was arrange for us to all stay in this great big house right on the beach. So so we didn't go to Playa del Carmen because you did that afterwards, kind of like as your honeymoon, right? But we were there for, the wedding and just staying in this house, on the beach with all these friends and everything. That was just amazing. We came in and got a margarita and...
Yeah, that was the other thing too. It was a very pampered kind of experience because it was a private villa and we had our own private chefs and so you were very pampered.
Which sounds very opulent, but really economically was so cheap.
Right, because there was for so many people, it makes a lot of sense actually, and it was nice just to not have to worry about anything. And we mostly, the beach is so nice and everything. Like we just mostly stayed put and just had a great time. So.
Well, honestly, when we were planning it, we had planned for us to have an outing in Playa del Carmen for everybody during our stay there. Yeah. We were actually, when we were originally planning it, we were going to have the rehearsal dinner in Playa del Carmen, which looking back, I really kind of regret a little bit. I mean, I don't have any regrets, but I really wish that we could have gotten people out to Playa del Carmen because where we were in Playa del Secreto was obviously very beautiful, amazing crocodiles swimming around in a little pond, and but seeing
you
Playa del Carmen
experience the culture.
Yeah, Playa del Carmen is an interesting mix because it's got a lot. There's a lot of touristy aspect to it, but at the same time, a lot of people live there. So it's a nice commingling of real people coming home from work, going to a restaurant, and Swedish tourists. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a nice balance to it, and next time we'll all have to make sure we go down there. So.
But yeah, I definitely recommend if anybody is looking for like, a big party or anything with a bunch of friends as a destination thing to look into that area.
But do get an international phone or get a SIM there or something like that, because not having the phone really messed us up a little bit.
Communications can be an issue.
and we were kind of isolated, which was nice,
Right.
but at the same, it meant that we were in this house on the beach and we could walk up and down the beach to different places, and there was another group that we knew that was staying at another house, so we could walk
Another really
over
nice
there.
villa system.
Yeah, so, but if we wanted to go anywhere that was not on the beach, you like needed to call a car,
Yeah.
because it wasn't like a
And
town that
that
you could
sadly
walk.
did get a little
to.
more expensive because it was outside of town. And now if we were all in Playa del Carmen and we needed to get a car, it's so much cheaper.
You mean just hiring the cars and Playa
It's
del
just like
Carmen?
hailing a cab
Yeah.
in Playa del Carmen,
Right.
and they're just like $15 to go to Tulum, no problem.
Yeah.
So
And hiring the car from where we stayed in Playa, what is it? Just
Playa del Secreto.
Secreto, yeah, was also a little bit complicated.
Because we didn't have a phone in
Yeah,
the villa, which is so weird.
Yeah, and also they had to know exactly how many people were
Yeah.
going to be in the car.
Right,
that
'cause
was really
there's
important.
all these regulations. I think because they were like airport van kind of
Yeah.
services, they're more regulated. That's another thing about the whole area is it is like kind of a protected kind of tourist region.
Because Mexico's kind of going through some like unrest, but it's more around Mexico City and this Cancun, and that is that is tourist attraction, big money draw, and they aren't gonna like bite the hand that feeds. And so there's police enforced there. There's
a lot of
definitely
checkpoints,
right.
Because basically we're in that what is it,
Riviera Maya.
Yeah, Maya. There's essentially like just one long
big
highway that goes up and down the coast, and as you're driving on it, you just see one big tourist resort after the other,
Right.
the other, after the. So it's
And
definitely
they're still like quaint in a way. Like they're still
Well, there are some quaint and there's
Right.
some big opulent.
but they're still
Right.
not like it's not Vegas opulent. It's
I don't know. I bet you some of those all-inclusives are.
there was that real. I mean, I did walk down the beach to one of the really nice.
Oh yeah, you took the
villas,
long.
and
No, that was an all-inclusive you walked
it was
to.
an
I think.
all-inclusive place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that place was really nice and kind of like, but it was still working with the local flavor. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't a pyramid built in the middle of nowhere
Right.
made out of glass. It was.
they
sort
keep
of
it
wood,
on
right.
theme or whatever.
And there's just such thick tree foliage stuff
Yeah.
that you kind of you turn a corner and there's a surprise. Like it's not.
And that's another amazing thing is just the plant life down there. It's just really
it's
neat.
tropical.
There's-
Yeah.
There's just
It's and dense as it. We were lucky enough in Playa del Secreto to have roof access, so you could just look around. We all looked around from the roof, and you could just see we're surrounded by very dense jungle the whole time, which is neat because you can take trips to go hiking in the jungle too, and
cool.
and go. There are some really kind of the pyramid called Koba, which is the most recently discovered of the big Mayan ruins of the area. It's the tallest. It's the tallest of the.
that's crazy that they're still discovering them.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've ever been around in that jungle, you can see why. Like
Yeah.
people just
Yeah.
like there's one road that cuts through. Nobody
Even driving
deviates.
along the highway, it's clear that you'll see like the facade, like these Jurassic Park pylons for
Yeah.
such and
Some
such resort.
old place,
But
yeah.
even the newer ones are like the jungle is eating them.
Getting
and so
them
you
back.
definitely like you would see work crews trying to cut it back away from the active villas and the ones that have been already started to be eaten back
pretty
by
wild.
by the jungle, and that's right on the main highway.
Yeah.
That's It's right there.
That's a little depressing though of the ride to see some of those places because you're just it kind of feels a little more hokey when you see those or something. You just feel like, was that a development that never got off the ground, or did it have its heyday in the 70s and now it's gone, or what?
Yeah.
But getting back to Coba, this was only discovered in the late 60s. This amazing Mayan, it's a whole town, and they're still cutting back to finding new stuff related to the site. But getting there, it's just so dense, such dense jungle. And once you hike around, to visit there, you can hike around in the jungle and stuff. It's really neat.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in, I also noticed. I mean, there is a lot of like, I don't know, kind of more
adventure parks.
Yeah. Like places with a lot of zip lines.
Well, I don't know what it is about that area, but they love zip lines.
Zip lines, that's pretty big around. Like I've seen places of like Vegas, they throw up zip lines, and it seems to be like, it's like
it's the new bungee jumping
roller coaster, but there's nothing to it. I don't know. It's super
it's easy
safe.
To set up, and it's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I would do it
if
it didn't cost a lot of money. I mean, and I don't know, it might be cheap, but I've never. If somebody was like, "Hey, man, you want to do this?" I'd do it.
Well, going there inspired you to get your scuba diving license, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about that, because.
So the first time I had gone there was probably, I think, 2 years ago in February, and we did a lot of snorkeling. And this time when we found out we were going to Mexico, we're like, no, forget it. We're gonna go diving. We can't go to the same place twice and not dive these because there are reefs there that are legendary. This is kind of why people get scuba licenses to see places like this. So luckily we were able to get in right under the wire, and so we were able to take classes here in New York, in a place actually in Hell's Kitchen right by where we used to work, and so and it's a place I had walked by at least 50 times, and it turns out, I mean, I remember seeing the dive shop, but there's a huge pool in there too, so that was really really neat. We took all of our instruction there. Our instructor was a really cool dude. He reminds me of the Bruce Willis's younger brother. If Bruce Willis had a younger brother, this is what this guy is. He's a really cool guy. Scuba Dave, I called him. I didn't just call him that. His business card says Scuba Dave. We got all of our certification done there. But you have to do these open water dives before you're actually certified. So we did our open water dives in Mexico. And so our first day of wanting to do open water dives, they're like, it's raining, we can't get out into the ocean, but we can go to a cenote. So I was able to do a lot of my tests in a cenote, which was amazing because the way they spoke about it, they seemed so disappointed to have to take us to a cenote. But once we got there, I saw a freshwater eel. I saw all these little freshwater turtles and just tons of little fish. So, maybe for them that's not that fun, but for me, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And to have been able to swim to dive in a cenote was pretty cool. And then the next day we did our our third and fourth freshwater dive, and those conditions were terrible. It was sad. I'll tell this story and then I'll cut it short because we're running a little long. But we went to get so we knew that we were going to go for instructional dives, which are pretty boring. We go to one place, we blow out our tank. Basically, we swim until our tank's almost empty. Then we do a couple of skills, like take your mask off, put it back on, make sure you know how to do these safety things, which are very important. And I'm glad I had to learn them. But if you had already been certified, it's really boring. And this guy came, and he was staying at some all-inclusive. And so he came, and he was like, guys, I know you're doing an instructional dive. I just want to get out and dive today. So what is it going to take? And the guys are like, we'll take you along. That's fine. But this guy must have been so bored because we get down there. So we get on this boat, and it's two groups. Our group, which is 4 people, and another group, which is 6 people and a bunch of different Europeans and stuff. And so we're talking about, and the dive people are really nice, and they encourage people to talk to one another about everything. So we're like, what are you guys doing? Where are you headed? What's happening? And they're like, well, we're going to go dive a shipwreck. And this guy's like, oh, cool, I want to dive a shipwreck. And our instructor's like, well, we can't dive a shipwreck. They're not certified to dive a shipwreck yet. And the guy's like, okay. So when we were down there, like, doing these things called fin pivots, which are like just basically learning to control your buoyancy, you're just basically laying on the bottom of the water, raising up, dropping back down, raising up. This guy's just kind of sitting there, I'm sure, stewing. And then we get back on the boat to drive to another, to ride to another site to do our second dive, get a fresh tank, get our gear back on. And they're like, hey, where are you guys going? They're like, we're going to go see the sharks. And he's like, man, I want to see sharks. And we were like, and our dive instructor's like, we'll probably see sharks where we're going. And so the guy's like, okay. And we go down, and the conditions were terrible. It was, there was just so much sand. There was probably 6 feet of visibility around us. So it was like swimming in a sandstorm, sadly.
It's when the waters are rough, it kicks up the sand.
Yeah, and we had a really tough current too, so we're just being pushed along. I mean, not dangerously so. I mean, it would have been dangerous if we had gotten separated from each other, but
right.
But it was just this this guy just probably had the worst dive.
The plows.
Snow plows, yeah.
Go get him, plows.
It's like thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the plows and our road getting destroyed. So we get up out of the dive. Oh, thanks, man. It was great. And we go back to the shop and we get our gear off. And we find out it's this guy's birthday, too. Aww. So for his birthday, he was going to go diving and see sharks. And so we got back up and the guys were like, we saw like 5 sharks. We got within 2 meters of them. They were huge. And so then this poor guy didn't get to do any of it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's because the all-inclusives just have to build where they can build, but the beaches in front of the villas we were on were that perfect, pristine coral, not a rock in sight. But you go down to the all-inclusive I walked to, and the beaches turn like to this rocky, like pretty rough.
Well,
like,
that's an interesting thing because there aren't an awful lot of unbroken beaches in that region because they're it's just the way the way it is. So that was one of the draws. We did our research and found out Playa del Secreto had like one of the greatest beaches.
But I was talking to my dad, and I was like, we were like between Cancun and Playa del Carmen, and he was like, yeah, we went down there because I guess my family had gone on a trip, one of those trips where they went when I was too busy. Yeah, and they pretty much had, I think, stayed. They said that they had stayed at one of those like areas with rocky beaches, but they could just walk north, and there would be this.
Were on that same beach.
I think they were on that in that same area, at the same time, and I think somewhere between Playa del Secreto and Cancun, there's also like on the way down, there's another sort of site or another place to go, and I forget the time.
There's a little town called
it's like CH something or.
I don't.
Sita.
Well, Chetamel is south of where we were.
I don't know if that's the one.
But the place that is just north of where we were was called, I think, Playa Morello, I think.
Yeah,
and it's a little fishing village. Well, I say little fishing village. It's a town. But that's what I'd recommend, y'all. Mexico, go get it.
Well, let me last thoughts on this one. Jules, had you been to Mexico before?
No, that was my first trip.
All right. Mary and me had been. We had gone north of Cancun to where was it again?
Isla Mujeres.
Oh yeah,
I've
cool.
heard a lot of good things about Isla Mujeres.
Yeah, it's cool. It was another destination wedding. It was really nice, beautiful beaches.
Yeah. We also
Which is it's an island.
Yeah,
though. It's an island.
You take a ferry.
Yeah.
You take from the airport. You take a shuttle to the ferry and take the ferry across. And basically, it's a big island, and you have to kind of drive to go to the southern, I think, part of the island. But where we were near the town, you could just actually where our wedding party ended up being, we sort of would just see people as you walked around town who were part of the
Yeah, I
wedding
mean,
party.
it was the kind of place it was great for a wedding and for having fun with people. I'm not sure I would want to go just myself, or just like John and me, but the couple who was getting married had, kind of like you and Elise, they'd been there before and
Right.
they've gone back. So, I mean, they enjoy it. And we went on like a snorkeling trip.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
while
It was one of
we
those
were
ones where
there.
they kind of plop you in one area and
Right,
they
they
drive
meet
the
you.
boat down the
Yeah.
way and the current just drags you to another point, and then they just grab you up out of the
Yeah.
water.
Yeah, that's
super
what we did
cheap.
last time. It was really
Yeah.
neat.
And I had been to Mexico when I was in college in Texas.
Yeah, and I'd driven across the border, but it, again, just kind of like border town visits.
To do what? Where?
Just with like family.
Cool. To buy fireworks.
Yeah. Well, you can always get fireworks in like the Midwest, so it's not.
Oh yeah.
We also we have a mutual friend named Alexei who's Russian originally, but is totally fell in love with Mexico and Mayan culture and all that. And he basically now fantasizes about just being a beach bum in Mexico.
Yeah. He will achieve that if he wants
probably. He would be a good person to follow up and talk about that place.
to. Well, we were talking about Tulum earlier, and you guys went to see Tulum when you were
that
down
was the
there.
1-day trip we took.
Well, did you see that? When you were walking to the beach club, did you see a little road that had a bunch of little like campsites and stuff off of it?
Yes, yeah.
That's where Nuge stayed for
Yeah, right.
several days while he was there.
Yeah.
He basically spent like $8 a night on a hammock.
Nice.
Yeah, which he loves.
He loves it. Yeah.
He could just quit everything and just sit on a hammock on the beach for the rest of his life. it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Well, when I got back this time, it was kind of a bummer that he couldn't come.
Yeah.
Because he's one of our close friends and he loves the area, and I was kind of bummed out.
Yeah,
he
he
couldn't
really
come.
wanted to be there. Too.
Yeah. But when we were taking the ferry over to Cozumel, they have this screen there, like a big TV, and it's like showing just different advertisements for different businesses and restaurants and such that, you're a captivative audience. You're on the ferry. Why not learn about some of the places to visit? And I was like, News, you got to go over there and make videos for these guys and just undercut whoever's making them now, because you're gonna look better than those guys.
That's great.
And our coworker boss
Yeah.
is also, he goes down there regularly, he has been pretty often, and he loves Tulum.
Yeah.
He's kind of a foodie. He loves the food, and he's got his favorite spots he loves to eat. But he also just, because he's a busy guy, he loves the fact that it's from New York. It's so convenient. That
Yeah.
you can just do it like a 3 or 4 day getaway, and still feel like you got a vacation.
And there's, I guess, south of Tulum, or like part of Tulum, there's this almost like eco preserve.
Yeah.
Water way, which has got cenotes and
Yeah.
also has like these rivers that they'll just
It's
drop
like an
you
estuary,
at the top,
too,
right?
yeah.
They'll drop you at the top of it, and you just almost flow your way
Oh,
down.
really? Wow,
And
that's
they'll pick you
neat.
back up in the water or
That's
whatever, and
neat.
it's just all shallow kind of water
That's
once you get
cool.
to the ocean. So, yeah.
Well, that's it for
Yep,
me.
That's a
Viva
great
Mexico.
pick. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thanks for introducing us to it.
Oh
and
gosh,
our
it was my
listeners,
pleasure.
too.
Thanks for taking a chance and
Yeah.
making the trip. It was wonderful.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And the wedding was magical.
Oh shucks.
yes.
Oh shucks. You're just saying that for the radio. For the
No,
radio
it
people.
was. I learned I was a
there was.
wizard. So, yeah, thanks, Keith.
My pleasure.
Mass, vision becomes startlingly clear, just like looking through an aquarium window. So, Bud decided to show Apollonio something new, one of the latest and most thrilling of sports, spearfishing underwater.
Such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence. distance. I know it takes time, but I'm losing my persistence. The distance is too far to fetch, so I sketch on pages and hope that some catch the thoughts of my inverted worded music. No trial and error, just emotion when I.
All his.
And I am John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho. With me this week was
Keith Vincent, one of your other hosts. You can find me at earthlingkeith.tumblr.com.
And I was another co-host, Julian Cage. You can find me on Twitter at Beautiful Jules.
And I'm Mary Varn. You can find me on Twitter at Mary Varn.
and you can find her comic at npccomic.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. You can find out more about the New to You show on Twitter at New to You Show. You can also find pictures and links to the content we've been talking about herein on newtoyoushow.com. We also have comments there. Nobody uses them, but they're there.
Yes.
So,
ready
yeah.
for somebody to pop that
Someone
cherry.
could say like, click, click, I hate this junk. Well, and that would be new. To have any sort of review
comment.
new.
But John, people don't use comments anymore. It's all about
That's
Twitter.
true. So tweet
Twitter's
us
where the conversation
and have a good time. Also, if you're feeling like giving a review
Speaking
on
of
iTunes,
comments,
you can always give a review on iTunes.
That would
if
really
you
help
listen to
us out.
there.
We would appreciate it.
It would give us iTunes.
iTunes
Cred.
juice.
cred, street cred.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what.
iCred.
I don't think it gives you anything, but love.
It helps you show up in searches better, I think.
I think we would start reading our comments if we got reviews and comments.
I would read it. I would read a comment maybe twice if I got one.
I don't think I've ever looked and see if we gotten any reviews yet on our iTunes.
So maybe
I don't
we
think we
have
have.
gotten
Maybe
a
we'll
lot.
do an episode about it. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. In the meanwhile, it may not be new, but hopefully it's new to you.
It's all about the music. This pitiful life is 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 all about the music.
With him.